To the RTA, are you excited about the prospects of the RTA and salvaging public transportation in the Chicago region in the aftermath of this legislative session in which no new funding package was passed? Go ahead.
Yeah, nervous, discouraged a little bit, but not deterred. We were trying to do a pretty big thing with a small amount of time. And we brought advocates and labor and bus and train operators and the service agencies all together to have a conversation about what reform looked like. We are running a system today that is aligned with the last time we did something big on this, which was 1974. And the 1974 system does not work in 2025, right? And so we know we've got to do things differently, from reform, governance and structure for sure, but also on the funding piece. I think we got really close. And the truth of the matter is, just by the time that the Senate version of the bill came to us, it was past midnight, or it was right at midnight. Like I told you earlier, the clock stopping doesn't happen anymore in Springfield. And that would have required that we had more votes, 71 votes, to pass that, which was a pretty substantial revenue package, right? New taxes on things that I think people can probably get behind if they really understood, and we spent some time socializing it. But what I said was it would have been irresponsible for us to try to move that and force it on people in the House, even though we had not had conversations about that piece of it. And so, we'll go back to the drawing board. I think we'll take a couple of days here. We just ended session, I guess, 48 hours ago now. We'll get through this week and we'll sit down and have a conversation about what we do to move forward. I don't only think that we will find a way to fix transit and to fund it, but we have to. I don't think we have a choice. And so it's important that we lock in on that.
Here's a question I get a lot, and I don't have the answer for. Maybe you do. So sometimes, you just alluded to this, sometimes said a bill championed by State Senator Ram Villavillamin passed the Senate 32-22, but never got out of the station to the House floor. And sometimes it's reverse: passes the House and dies in the Senate. And people on the outside looking in are always trying to find a rhyme or reason for this. I remember this very much with elected school board. I don't know if you were in the State House for those votes. It always seemed to Michael Mad Dog would pass it in the House, and then it would die in the Senate. Cullerton was pals with Rom. So is there any rhyme or reason to why this passed in the Senate and died in the House?
Yeah, the only real reason was that the timing, right? The Senate began to debate the bill at about 11 o'clock at night. And so by the time the final vote happened there, I believe it was 11:47. Yeah. And so by the time it arrived in the House, it was midnight. And that would have been before we took it to committee, before we had any of the conversations as a caucus about what those things were. We were not certain up until that point that the Senate was actually going to move that bill, and the House began to work on the version of the bill ourselves that would at least have some revenue. Our revenue package was much smaller than the Senate's, but we really just ran out of time, right? And so I know in the past, in certain situations, as you say, I think the House passed elected school board 6 times. And the Senate 6 times subsequently killed it. And then even on the last time when we actually got it through, the Senate wanted to switch roles, so that the Senate actually passed it, yes, and then left town, and the House had to come back to pass it. And so, this is not era nova for us. We've been here before. We know how to operate in this space. What's important to me is that we create some stability and some certainty for the transit agencies, so they know what's coming as they begin to work on their budgets. Once again, I'm still optimistic, and I think we'll get this done.
What about the budget itself? Is that just the budget that was passed? Are you pleased with it? Is it a kick the can down the road budget? Are you going to find yourself in September facing a shortfall that you have to deal with again? Your thoughts about the budget that was just passed?
Yeah, so Ben, I am partial to this budget. I will say it was my first year working as a budget negotiator, as a budgeteer. And so I spent the better part of the last 3 months solely focused on how we create a budget that works for the people of Illinois. If I had to describe or characterize this budget, I would tell you it's a grown-up budget. It's an adult budget. It's not flashy. It's a little bit boring, but it does the things that we need to do in order to keep momentum going in the right direction, right? So we doubled down on things like the evidence-based funding formula for schools. We put more money there. We put more money in healthcare. So when you look at the safety net hospitals around the state, and the ones in Chicago that people would know, like St. Bernard and Jackson Park and South Shore and Insight, formerly Mercy, we put more money into those. Roseland, we put more money into those hospitals in order to protect our most vulnerable people. When it comes to some of the environmental things that we've been working on, we put our money where our mouth was. And so for me, it was important that this budget was not just balanced fiscally, but it was balanced morally, right? That we had an obligation to do more, to make sure that we were funding our universities, and not just the big flagship that I had the pleasure of going to, but places like Chicago State and Governor State and Northeastern Illinois and UIC, to make sure that we are educating our next generation of young people in this state. So I'm really proud of this budget. It also leaves some room for what we know will be, whatever comes down from Washington, D.C., both from this reckless Congress and this ridiculous president. We'll have to probably come back at some point. It's very possible through the summertime to tighten things up or do things differently or look at things from a different angle based on what they do. But I'm proud of what we did here, and we should feel confident that we're moving in the right direction.
All right, we're going to close with 3 curveball political questions that I didn't tell you were coming.
Okay.
I love doing this to Cam. See how he handles this. Since you mentioned a reckless Congress and a ridiculous president, I will throw you a question that's been a topic of big debate on the show, and you can probably figure out where I stand on it. But I'll ask you. So Mayor Brandon Johnson has been vocal in blasting President Trump. And there are those in the city of Chicago who say that he's being reckless, that he should just be quiet and go along and not antagonize the president, maybe even compliment him, tell him how he looks so good with his weight loss and how he believes it's not related to any diet pills he's taking, but it's all those sit-ups he's been doing, or something like that. Whatever, suck up to Donald Trump. So do you believe that Mayor Brandon Johnson is being reckless in criticizing Donald Trump?
I stand somewhere in the middle on that, right? I think that you've got to be smart and methodical about how you deal with a megalomaniac like the president. At the end of the day, the mayor's charge is to do all he can for the people of Chicago, right? And if being quote unquote nicer to the president gets you there, then you got to pick your battles. But I will also say, Ben, I've been watching this guy for a long time, Donald Trump, that is, and I don't think that he respects folks who kiss the ring or kiss his ass. I don't know if I can say that on this podcast, but I just did. So I think you've got to have some strength too, right? So he does not respect folks who bow down, even though he would much rather have them in his corner. He's not going to do more for Chicago or take his eyes off Chicago because the mayor talks about how beautiful his hair is, or whatever. I don't know what things you could say about Trump, but so that's it. But what I will say, I mean, people used to say, would you ever meet with Trump one-on-one if you were the governor or the mayor? I would absolutely say yeah, because I want to shake him in his hand with a firm handshake and look him in the eye, let him know I'm not scared of him, right? And I think that goes a long way. But in the absence of doing that, I think the mayor's doing all right on that.
All right, and question number 2. And that is J.B. Pritzker, Governor Pritzker. Clearly, he's letting everybody know that he wants to run for president. In fact, at the show, his new nickname on our show is President Pritzker. So here's the big debate question that people have been talking about on the show. Should J.B. Pritzker run for a 3rd term, or should he not run for a 3rd term and concentrate on running for president?
Yeah, that seems to be a question in a lot of circles. If the governor does indeed want to be president, I think he has an ability that most folks don't have, which is that he doesn't have to be in an elected office to do that. He can do that from a separate perch, being absolved from some of the things that happen in state government. There's always a crisis every single day, and he's done a good job dealing with those. But the question becomes, are you risk adverse, and how you operate in that space? So that's something that I know he's going to decide very shortly if he has not already done so. But I don't think he has to be governor to run for president. I'll just add this anecdote too on the end of this, Ben. He's already, I think, sealed his legacy here in the state. When President Pritzker, wow, when Governor Pritzker, see what you did? When Governor Pritzker finishes this term, he will be the longest serving Democratic governor in the history of the state. We've never had a Democratic governor finish 2 entire terms.
Yeah, that's right. Blago didn't make it. Sorry, Blago, you didn't make
Blago didn't make it. Dan Walker didn't make it. Otto Kerner didn't make it. Shapiro didn't make it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I have to think back now, go way back, but I'm going to take your word on that one. I know wow, that's deep. All right, and here's the final curveball I'm throwing at you. So Dick Durbin is stepping down. He's retiring, and the big three: Raja, Robin, and Juliana, running. We talk about this. This one gets a lot of conversation on this show. I just do not know the answer to this, Cam. So I'll ask it to you right now without knowing the answer. Have you endorsed any candidate yet? Are you leaning toward any candidate? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have put my support behind the lieutenant governor. I think Juliana is the best person in this field for this role. I know she understands the entirety of the state. And, as a former state rep and someone who has spent the last 7 years as lieutenant governor, she's seen Illinois from a different vantage point. This seat is really important to me, Ben. I grew up adjacent to this seat in politics. I worked for Dick Durbin for 6 years, fresh out of college. And I know how much good and bad can possibly come from the U.S. Senate if we have, depending on who's in those roles, right? And so while I adore Robin Kelly, she's a friend. I think the world of her. I don't know Raja as well as the other two. I think the lieutenant governor is the right person at the right time for that position.
All right, we'll close with a trivia question. Now, real curveball at you. This is easy, actually. This is so easy. I only 2 trivia points for this one. Yes, Juliana Stratton is the lieutenant governor. Before that, she was state representative. For 2 trivia points, because it's so easy. Who did she defeat in the Democratic primary?
Well, listen, there's a little state rep race right in my neighborhood. In fact, the line of the district is across the street. So I'm like the furthest east in my district, west in my district you can go, and then the 5th district is literally across the street. A little small state rep race that got President Obama's attention somehow, against the world famous Ken Duncan.
Kenny D. Yes.
Lincoln Park High School, Cabrini Green projects.
From the north side. Somehow or other, when they were done rearranging that boundaries, he was representing the south side. Kenny Duncan is from the north side, okay? Yes, he is totally in his district office. I could still see it. Was on Wells, just south of North Avenue.
That's right.
For forever. So, all right, you pass the trivia question and you get your 2 points, which is redeemable. That'll get you nothing in the world. All right, Cam, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always fun talking politics and Bears with you. All right.
Thank you for having me as always, Ben. Keep up the good work, brother.
Thank you, sir. That's the great Kam Buckner. I also want to thank producer Chris. He does an outstanding job, and I know Kam Buckner and Ken Duncan agree with me when I say, hey, producer Chris, give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. Peace and love, everybody.